Oregon School Board fires 2 teachers for daring to reach out and ask an opinion of Ben Shapiro. That's it. They fired him. Planned Parenthood murderers, BLM stooges, Antifa thugs are all fine in the public schools, but not a 150-pound conservative Jewish nebbish? Ladies and gentlemen, your public schools. I'm Dr. Duke, she's Katie, and this is The Dr. Duke Show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Dr. Duke Show, the only program that keeps you educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. Today's show is sponsored by Mike Lindell and our good friends at MyPillow. All you got to do is go to mypillow.com. We will give you up to 66% off on all your bed and bathing needs if you just offer the promo code Dr. Duke. That's DRDUKE. Right now, they have a great pillow sale going on. You can get a $69 pillow for $29. Just enter Dr. Duke, DRDUKE. Today we start in Oregon, where an email to Ben Shapiro has been cited as a reason to fire a pair of teachers who oppose transgender students being allowed to use the bathroom of their choice. So what you have is an assistant principal and a science teacher who are trying to use their intellect. They're trying to come up with solutions. They're trying to approach the issue of transgenderism from a perspective that would respect the rights of children and of parents, people who agree with the transgender movement and those who are skeptical, coming up, trying with ways of negotiating this. Are there things that we can do? Well, one of the things that they did, this administrator and this teacher, is reach out to Ben Shapiro because he's got some good ideas. And as they say many times, we want to include all voices. And that was your first mistake, teacher and administrator. If you think the public school system wants to hear any other voices but their own, that's why you just got fired.
This is true. So, again, let's encompass this. These 2 emailed Ben Shapiro, and for writing about, what their thoughts were on the transgender policy going on, the district is claiming that they were using school resources to work on a political campaign. Let's listen to what this assistant principal and the science teacher have to say. See how radical right-wing they are.
We want to give voice to all sides, right? We want to be respectful always. And that's something that our nation has been built on. It's a basic action that we should be taking towards others. We should be respectful. And so that's always this underlying, but at the same time, also giving freedom to staff and to students without mandating the use of the pronouns or the use of the preferred name.
And requiring that we work together with the family. Absolutely. So it's us working with the family or whoever is in that guardian role, the child, and with the school. And it's bringing us all together.
Absolutely.
So they're so right-wing by wanting to be neutral that they got fired from the Grants Pass School Board on a vote of 4-3. And that was, as you saw, Assistant Principal Rachel Damiano and science teacher Katie Medart.
And that is the lesson here. The public schools are completely offline and out of line. The fact that you try to incorporate, you're willing to listen to other points of view, you're willing to take serious parents and students that have concerns about boys and girls locker rooms. That means you have betrayed the ethos of the school. There is one way of doing things in the American public schools. It is the progressive way. Any deviation from that will be punished with firing. Now, I am of the opinion that these 2 teachers, this administrator and teacher, if they sue, they are going to win this. Fired from your job, from trying to be reasonable, fired from your job, from trying to bring people together rather than divide them. Fired from your job, from daring to give an outside perspective that isn't radically progressive. You're going to win this in court. Even in Oregon, you're going to win this in court. So sue, baby, sue.
They have sued. They filed
there you
suit.
Go.
So they filed suit against the district and the school board members, and they're being represented by Ray Hack of the Pacific Justice Institute.
God bless PJE, the Pacific Justice. Look, let me just throw this out there. PJI. If you ever find yourself, not even just on the West Coast, if you ever find yourself being harassed by schools or universities about this kind of stuff, the Pacific Justice Institute in California is a largely pro bono organization that will defend you free of charge. They will fight back against the schools on your behalf. So don't be afraid to do what's right. There are organizations like PJI waiting to help you.
And as Ray Hack said, because there was a backlash from fellow employees and community members who didn't like what the administrator and the teacher had to say, the district basically threw them under the bus. And he also said that they did use the school email to email Ben Shapiro. They were using their own time to express their opinions. And he said people are allowed to have discussions with people about political topics on their own time, according to them. So again, I can't reiterate this enough. You listen to what they had to say. Did they sound crazy conspiracy theory, right-wing nut jobs that we were told are everywhere in this country, that anyone who voted for Donald Trump is one of these people? Did those two women sound like that to you? Because if you think that is super right-wing and crazy, there's no hope for us. There's no hope for us.
Take a look at that picture. One might be tempted to believe this is the prom committee, right? The two faculty members who are part of the prom committee. There's nothing threatening about these women. There's nothing radical about these women. There's nothing evil or subversive about what they're doing. They're trying to approach the question from multiple perspectives, and that's enough in America's public school gulags to get you fired.
And their campaign, their advocacy is called I Resolve. You could see it on their T-shirts. And they're just trying to make it so that if you're anatomically male, you go in the men's room. And if you're anatomically female, you go in the women's room. And if you don't feel comfortable with either of those, you can have a private space. Right. You could request it. I thought that was what everyone wanted back when this first came to head.
See, separate but equals evil, right? But not if you're Black Lives Matter, where or your American universities, where they're setting up separate graduations for blacks and Native Americans and gays, or they're building dormitories or workout facilities for blacks and gays at the expense of other people. That's fine. That kind of separate but equals okay, but not when it comes to trying to find solutions that are not progressive solutions. This school really should be sued off the face of the map, the ground salted, and only pigeons allowed to pee there for the rest of time.
Now, there have been a lot of protesting going on in Cuba or in Florida about what's happening in Cuba in the fight for freedom. And many people in the U.S. either don't know or just simply don't care. And of course, students in Washington, D.C. were just slightly confused about why Cuban protesters would want to fly the American flag. So Campus Reform, doing its due diligence, Ophelia Jacobson, she went to the Capitol and she wanted to know, students.
Yeah, and just by way of setup. So
what does it mean?
You have a bunch of American college kids with all of their anti-freedom, pro-communist sympathies meeting up with citizens suffering under communism, and these college kids are going to have to react to why these communist sufferers are wrapping themselves in the American flag.
So I want to show you a few photos of some protests that have been happening around the world, most recently in Cuba. They're protesting their communist regime, and you can see American flags being flown at the protest. Back in 2019 in Hong Kong, protesters were also waving American flags, and in Venezuela as well. Why do you think these people are waving the American flags overseas?
Well, I don't know. It's not this perfect image of equality and opportunity.
I mean, I'm from Ukraine, and so, we obviously love America over there too. The stigma is like, you come to America, you get everything you want. And so coming here, it's obviously a lot different. You actually have to work for your stuff. And so I think maybe in countries over there, they're just maybe they're just not keeping up with the news around here.
Do you think maybe they're being naive?
Yeah, I'd say so. Say they don't really know what's going on. I'd say I was just saying that those they're our demographic, they are the only ones for the most part who truly understand. College age students have a pretty firm understanding of for the most part of what's going on and I guess all the inequity in America.
Oh, they do they? The college students have a great understanding of what's going on.
Yeah, let's take that kid. That kid is actually arguing that we college kids are the only ones who really know what America's like. We've never had to make a payroll. We've been in school since we were 5 years old. We're in debt up to our elbows with student loans. We've never had a baby. We've never had a 50th birthday. We've never had any serious life experience. But because we listen to our indoctrinated professors, we know better than any other demographic about how bad America is.
Well, yeah, and when they're asked about doesn't the American flag represent freedom, and they're saying no, it doesn't, and I don't think it's as free as people think it is, and I think it's just a piece of cloth at the end of the day. Well, it is, but it's what does it stand for? If you understood actually what the cloth
they don't get it
meant,
because
why it was
this demographic who only gets it. They know no history. They know nothing about the Constitution. I'll go one step further. The one that really bothered me, besides that smug punk, was the girl before who said she was from the Ukraine. This one blows me away. When you live in places like the Ukraine, you're told that all you have to do is go to America and everything you want is given to you. When in the history of America has that ever been the definition of America? She says, when you get here, people don't realize you have to work for things.
Wait, what?
Seriously.
You do? Now, the same two girls were asked the question of, well, if we shouldn't be flying the American flag, well, what flag should we fly? What other country? People had said Sweden, France, Switzerland. And that girl is like, what's the country where, there's not even really a prison system? They have, a really low crime rate. What is that country? That's where we're at. So, in addition to Ophelia Jacobson going no, we have another story out of campus reform along the same lines, and this time it was Addison Smith who decided to go to D.C. to ask students if they knew why Cubans were protesting. And put simply, no, they don't.
Watch carefully this one, because they're going to actually hear from Cuban nationality students, people who had run away from communism. These college kids are going to hear their story, and then they're going to be asked do you want communism here, more or less? Staggering what the answers are.
In Cuba right now, we're seeing the people of Cuba revolt, the first of its kind that we've seen in several decades. They're protesting an oppressive government. They don't have access to basic necessities like, food, water, money, things like that. How do you think Cuba got to that point?
I'm gonna be honest, I don't really know.
I don't know either.
I don't know. I would say probably related to the government not providing.
The restrictions and all that the government's putting on Cuba just keeps getting tighter and tighter, and the people keep getting poorer and poorer and poorer.
Do you think it could have something to do with the fact that Cuba for several decades now has been a communist dictatorship?
Yeah, I know that at least with communism, the ideal communism and the way it's supposed to be isn't necessarily the way it is.
Oh, definitely, probably. I don't know a lot about it, but I'm sure everything is contributing to it, yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Do you think that socialism or communism could take hold of America, or do you think it's incompatible with what America stands for?
Oh, I could only hope.
No, I think I'd be open to it.
Now, we learned in this last story 2 whole seconds ago that these college kids know everything that's going on. They're well informed, they're up to date. And then you got the scooter kids who had no idea.
How many?
No, I don't think I could
How
talk.
many
I
of
don't
those
know
kids
what's
said,
happening.
I don't know. I don't know what's going on.
I don't know.
have
I'm
no
just
idea.
on my scooter down here
this is
enjoying my day.
Did you see the one shining jewel of ignorance with her mask on? Scooting down campus with her mask on.
Well, it's D.C. It's probably for all the pollution.
It's the admission that they
everything
don't
else.
know anything. So how many of those kids admitted they don't know? And then turned around when asked if they would like to see a socialism here. Oh, yeah, we'd like that. So how do you square that circle? This incredible arrogance that we alone know things. And then when you're asked a simple question, you say you don't know anything. And then when you're asked for a solution, you give an answer that is completely uninformed. That, my friends, is what you're spending tens of thousands of years for, tens of thousands of dollars for on college campuses. Do you really think, Mom, what you just saw, is that worthy of $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 of student loan debt when it's all said and done? Is this where you want your kids to spend some of the most important formative years of their lives doing this kind of stuff? Learning these kind of things? Please.
when we're talking about lack of freedom in Cuba, let's also go to Hong Kong, where we have 5 people being arrested for suspicions of conspiring to publish seditious material with the intent of inciting public hatred towards the city government, which, if you know anything with Hong Kong, it's ruled by China, that everyone, LeBron James is such a fan of. And it's all because these 5 people, this seditious material that these 5 people wanted to publish, it's a kid's book. Yep. The Agence France Presse reported that the books were published by the General Union of Hong Kong Speech Therapists, and the books are trying to explain Hong Kong's democracy movement to kids. Democracy supporters are portrayed as sheep living in a village surrounded by wolves. And the first book is titled Guardians of Sheep Village and explains the 2019 pro-democracy protests that had swept through Hong Kong. Now, Janitors of Sheep Village is the second book, and it sees cleaners in the village who go on strike to force out wolves who leave litter everywhere. And the book's introduction explains it's a reference to Hong Kong medical workers striking last year in a bid to force the government to close the border with mainland China at the start of the coronavirus pandemic. And then it's a trilogy. So the final book is The 12 Braves of Sheep Village. It's about a group of sheep who flee their village by boat because of the wolves. And it's a direct reference to 12 Hong Kongers who made a failed bid to escape by speedboat last year to Taiwan, but were detained by the Chinese Coast Guard and jailed. So living in Hong Kong, it's like they actually put out what's really happening. And for that, it's demonstrating their exact point by them being arrested for trying to put out a kid's book.
We hear from these stuttering, stammering morons from college campuses, now CRT training in high schools and middle schools. All we hear about the evils of Western colonialism. I'll tell you what, the British turned Hong Kong into an international city, one of the wealthiest cities in the world, one of the freest cities in the world. They passed, I think it was 1995, they handed it back to the Chinese, and there were supposed to be no major structural changes until about 2045, I believe it was, that government, the Chinese government could not override the independent will of Hong Kong for about 40, 50 years. It's 2021, it's already done. This is what happens when communist nations take over such evilly colonized countries like Hong Kong.
Yeah, and it was 97,
cities,
so it was close.
Cities like Hong Kong.
Yeah, so 97 was when they became the one country, two systems. That was what it was called, one country, two systems. And it was supposed to preserve Hong Kong's freedoms.
Yep.
Preserve Hong Kong's freedoms. And obviously them being the financial hub, basically.
Well, that's what happens when you trust the Chinese.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Oh, yeah. Well, you give us back Hong Kong. Well, we promise not to. We promise not to make it communist.
We just want X. We just want that. If you give a mouse a cookie, if you want to talk about kids' books, if you give a mouse a cookie, you know what's going to happen.
All we want is the Sudetenland. Look, I get it. We don't want much as German people in 1935. Give us a Sudetenland, okay? We took that. You know what? All we want is Czechoslovakia, because there's a lot of German speakers in Czechoslovakia. Just let us have that. We won't want anything else. Oh, Austria. Yeah, the Anschluss. You do realize that Austria used to be a German city, right? So give us Austria, and we promise we'll take nothing more. Ask Poland how that works out.
And so there were 2 men, 3 women, aged 25 to 28, who were arrested. And Steve Lee, who's the senior superintendent of the National Security Department, basically working the Chinese government, said the books were stirring up hatred towards the government and inciting violence.
They have some information of some of the material inside, which is with a seditious intent, which bring the hatred against the government and the administration of the justice and inciting the violence to the others.
And I must say this, otherwise I too will be arrested and thrown into prison.
Time now for some instant classics. We're looking at all the ugliness in this world and the madness that creates it, along with that beauty that somehow manages to peep through the cracks every now and then. And our image for this, of course, is Vincent van Gogh. And so we've talked about some other of his famous paintings, and this is kind of an interesting one. It is one of his most well-known paintings. Again, this kind of defies the trick, though, doesn't it? In what way is this like those booming skies, those dark indigo skies at night? How is this like the wheat field with crows? How is this like those beautiful irises and sunflowers? It really is kind of a moving image, though. First of all, it shows you in this small trapezoidal room, it shows you where and how the life of Vincent van Gogh played out, living in rooms like this all his life, so that he could be near those subjects and those beautiful natural images that he wanted to paint. But this is literally one of the great minds of Western culture, and that's where he lived. And it's a beautifully, for such a small and cramped room, there's something really beautiful about it. And I guess it's just the idea that this is Vincent's room. And it's a beautiful statement for all the ways we talk about how mentally ill he was, how he didn't fit into society, how he didn't get along with people, how his own family turned on him, ultimately, with the exception of his brother. When you look at this, right, who's the one that's teaching us here? Not only through his paintings and how deep and profound they are, but in the way he lived his life. In this absolute, some might even call it squalor, but this is a very, very, the idea of what does one need to live? What does it take to be human? What makes this room, I think, in many ways, not just acceptable, but perhaps shame us, who have so much space, so much room that we don't know how to fill. Notice that you have those beautiful pictures, his own pictures on the wall. Here's a guy who only sold a couple pictures while he was alive and a few drawings, who made precious little money on his work to be able to live and to carry on. And yet in that beautiful bedroom, it's all you need. Out of that bedroom came the mind that created, you think about space in Vincent's paintings. Think about space, the openness, the open sky, the beautiful rambling fields of gold, all these beautiful things. It shows you a mind that really was only free, Vincent, was only free and only prosperous in his mind. And is that really a form of madness, or is that a kind of health that far, far too few of us in this world will ever know? Take a look at this. I mean, it really is kind of beautiful, that bedroom. There are 3 authentic versions described of this painting in his letters, easily distinguishable from one another. The painting depicts Van Gogh's bedroom at 2 Place Lamartine in Arles, Bouches-du-Rhône, France, in what was known as the Yellow House. So the door to the right, you can see it at the right part of the picture, opened up to the floor, another floor of staircases, and the door to the left was that of the guest room on the left there, by the yellow chair, of Gauguin, Paul Gauguin, the other famous post-impressionist painting who spent a lot of time with Vincent and quarreled a lot of times with Vincent. The window in the front wall looked out onto the Place Lamartine and its public gardens. The room was not rectangular, but trapezoid, with an obtuse angle in the left-hand corner of the front wall and an acute angle at the right. In April of 1889, Van Gogh sent the initial version to his brother, regretting that it had been damaged by the flood of the Rhône while he was interned in the mental hospital in Arles. So this is also, on top of everything else, it's the room of a man in a sanatorium. There's a lot to talk about in this picture.
Well, all right. If you enjoy our content, please support us by joining the Patriot Club. Your one-time $99 tax-deductible donation allows us to bring you stories every day. Simply visit patriotclub.us to get signed up, and as a little thank you, we will ship you our signature tumbler. Now, we want to take a moment to show some love to our Patriot Club members, and today we're giving a shout-out to Christopher from Calgary, Canada. Oh, Canada. Thank you for supporting us.
The C. Christopher from Calgary, Canada.
Look at him go.
A Canuck. We love it. Do something about that government of yours. I'm putting it on you. Find a way to get rid of Trudeau, please. Pretty please. We'll send you another tumbler. And that wraps up the show for today. I am Dr. Duke. She is Katie. Until next time, stay educated, hoser.
Hoser. Eh?